Today we continue Silavanta Sutta. First, we have to recite question and answer between Venerable Margutika and Venerable Sariputta. Can you follow me? Silavata Uso Sariputta. Bhikkhuna Katame Dhamma Yoni Samanasigadava Silavata Uso Kutika Bhikkhuna Pinjupada Nekanda Anicca Dukkha Roga Ganda Sanlada Agada Avadada Parada Palogada Sunyada Anatta Yoni Samanasikadava. Recite together. Silavata Usasari Buddha Bhikkhuna Katame Dhamma Yoni Samanasikadava Silavata Usakutika Bhikkhuna Pinjupara Nekanda Anicca Dukkha Roga Ganda Sanlada Agada Avadada Parada Palogada Sunyada Anatta Yoni Samanasikadava. Translation, read together. Frank Sariputta thinks that a virtuous bhikkhu should carefully attend to. Frank Kutika should carefully attend to. Case subject to clinging as permanent, as suffering, as a disease, as juma, as death, as misery, as alien, as dissolution, as empty, as non-self. Continue, follow me. Katame Pinja Seyatidam Rupupara Nekanda Vedanupara Nekanda Sinyupara Nekanda Singaru Paranekanda Vinyanu Paranekanda. Recite together. Katame Pinja Seyadidam Rupu Paranekanda Nuparanekanda Sinyu Paranekanda Aruparanekanda Vinyanuparanekanda. Translation, read together. What are the five aggregates of clinging? Namely, physical aggregates subject to clinging, mental formation aggregates, so according to Silavanta Sutta, meditators have to observe the five aggregates subject to clinging as Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, as impermanence, as suffering, as non-self. But actually, seeing these three characteristics is not so easy, as there are certain barriers that conceal these three characteristics. Visuddhimagga identifies the barriers, concealing them, and explain how the concealment can be broken. Yogi, due to your ability, you are breaking the barriers to see the three characteristics. According to the Visuddhimagga, impermanence is concealed by continuity, santati. The notion of continuity exists because people do not give attention to rise and fall. Sabbesankara nature, all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. They rise and fall, rise and fall. But people do not give attention to rise and fall. So there are two factors here, continuity and failure to see the rise and fall of the aggregates, failure to see the rise and fall of the mind and matter. What is continuity? Actually, there is no continuity. It does not exist. It is only a notion, the notion that things are continuous. And this notion conceals the characteristics of impermanence. Let us take some example. When you see something like a rope or a line in the distance, we think that it is a solid line, it is a solid object. But when you getting closer to that line, you see that it is not a continuous thing. Actually, it is the army of termites. One termite following the other. On seeing that they are termites, you lose the notion that it is a continuous line. Which is correct? Which is the fact? The continuous object or just the termites? You see the line, you see a lines of termites at a distance, but the fact is that there is not a line. What is true is the termites, but not the line. Yet you think that it is a line of termites. Why do you think that it is a line, a continuous thing? Why do you not see it as something made of segments or individual small things? It is because you do not see the individual things. You cannot see them arising and disappearing. One time I arise and then disappear. Suppose there is the beginning of one termite. and its end is followed by the beginning of another Dhamma, and that second Dhamma end is followed by the beginning of another Dhamma, and the end of that Dhamma is followed by the beginning of another Dhamma, and so on. Between the Dhammas, there are gaps. They are not connected as a solid whole, but from a distance, these gaps or breaks between the Dhammas cannot be seen. So you think you have seen a continuous line of them. However, when you get closer, there really is no such thing as a line of Dhammas. They are just Dhammas following one after another. When you cannot see mind and matter or parts of mind and matter as separate from one another and arising and disappearing, you may think they are a continuous flow. Although you have read or you have been taught that they are not continuous and they are composed of small parts, if you do not meditate, if you do not really see the arising and disappearing, you will still think in terms of one continuous things. Now you are watching your body moment by moment. What do you think? Your body today is one continuous process from the body yesterday. Or that you have the same body that you had yesterday? Or is it a different body? At every moment, material particles are arising and disappearing, but you do not see them. Only when you practice vipassana meditation, you can see them. When you see the material particles arising and disappearing, one material particle arising and disappearing, followed by another material properties and so on, only then will you be able to get rid of the notions of continuity. Then you will realize that there is no continuous phenomenon going on, but actually small parts arising and disappearing one after another. And also you try to be aware of your mind. You think that you have the same mind that you had 10 years ago. You have the same mind that you had last month or yesterday. But in intensive retreat, through your vipassana knowledge, you find that mind is new at every moment. In one moment, there is one mind. or one consciousness, then the state of mind disappears and is followed by another types of consciousness which disappear and is followed by another types of consciousness and so on. Now you hearing consciousness, then seeing consciousness, and sometimes thinking consciousness interfere. Then touching consciousness, and then hearing consciousness again. When you can see them as separate moments falling one after another, you are able to break the notions of continuity. Once continuity is broken, you have no sense of continuity, and the characteristics of impermanence becomes clear to you. Let us, let us take the sheet of paper as another example. Do you think that you use pen and ink on that paper because it is solid and opaque? You use that paper to write on and wrap things up, so you assume that it is solid. We all think that way. But if you look at this sheet of paper under a powerful microscope, what you see is that it is an object that has more empty space than solid material. So which is the truth? A solid sheet of paper or something full of empty spaces? We say that seeing is believing. What do you see? You see a sheet of paper, but you put the paper under the powerful microscope, and you will find that your notion is wrong. Now you see that it is really something with a lot of empty spaces. So seeing is not believing, seeing is misleading. You needed a powerful microscope in order to see the truth about this piece of paper. It is no longer a smooth, continuous sheet of paper. It is a thing full of holes. You may also think of the combinations of mind and matter, the five aggregates, as being one whole continuous thing. Here in this meditation hall, no microscope can help. But due to your diligent practice, in practicing intensive vipassana meditation, you will be able to see mind and matter as separate entities arising and disappearing. Seeing them arise and disappear at every moment, you are able to break the notions of continuity, the notions of sanctity. Vipassana knowledge is the powerful microscope you use to discover the characteristics of impermanence. Just, a, just as a microscope is needed to see the truth of a material sheet of paper, you need vipassana knowledge in order to understand the truth of mind and matter, in order to understand the truth of the five aggregates, in order to understand, in order to see their impermanent nature. One sub-commentary said that a meditator who rightly sees rise and fall does not see phenomena manifest in a connected state, but rather in a state of disconnectedness, like iron dots. You may have seen iron spikes. They are like iron dots and are separate one from another. To a meditators who practice vipassana and can see the rise and fall of the aggregates, the mental and physical state no longer appear as connected, but are separate and unconnected. Once you see this disconnectedness of things, see that they are not continuous but are composed of many separate parts, you come to understand that these constantly rising and falling things are impermanent. But as long as you think that they are continuous, it is impossible to see their impermanent nature. The notion of continuity must be removed if yogi is to see impermanence and know it to be the characteristics of the aggregates. To get rid of the notions of continuity, meditator need to watch phenomena, watch things. You need to see that the aggregates arise and disappear. Once the arising and disappearance of the aggregates are seen, you will be able to rid yourself of the notions of continuity. When the notion is broken, the nature of impermanence manifests itself clearly to you. So now the barriers you already broken and you see the impermanence. So we have to read the notes, page number 7, number 22. Number 22, can you follow me? Impermanence is concealed by continuity. The notion of continuity exists because people do not give attention to rise and fall. Impermanence is concealed by continuity. The notion of continuity exists because people do not give attention to rise and fall. You read together 3 times. Impermanence is concealed by continuity. The notion of continuity exists because people do not give attention to rise and fall. Impermanence is permanence is conceived by continuity. So now you really pay attention to the rise and fall. When they come in, you capture it, hearing, and its fall, disappear. When you see something, you note it, and its rise and fall, appearing and disappearing. Every object, every physical phenomena, mental phenomena, every rupa aggregate, vedana aggregates, sinya, sankhara, and vijnana aggregates. Everything coming to you, and you trying to capture it, you trying to observe it. Then you see rise and fall, and then notion of continuity cannot exist because you pay attention to the rise and fall of the every phenomena. Now continuity is broken. They are separate, one after another. Seeing is seeing, hearing is hearing, smelling is smelling, walking is walking, thinking is thinking. So everything is separated, and you see the impermanence more and more. There is a way to become enlightened. Then Dukkha, according to the Visuddhimagga, the second characteristics, the characteristics of suffering does not become apparent because when continuous oppression is not given attention, it is concealed by one's posture. As you know, if you sit for some time, you eventually will have pain somewhere. Under normal condition, when you are not meditating, as soon as there is pain, you will change your posture and find the posture more comfortable. But pain eventually comes to that posture also. So you shift into another posture and the pain appears there also. The attempt to avoid pain goes on and on and on. We try to avoid the pain. We need to accept the reality. So pain is temporarily removed. But the next posture you adopt, which seem to conceal the nature of suffering, because we keep changing postures. The whole day you can notice postures changing. We do not realize that the body is always suffering. body is always suffering. Sometimes hunger, sometimes hungry, sometimes thirsty, sometimes nature call, sometimes eyes problem, ear problem, back problem, leg problem, always suffering. We do not sit down long enough to notice that the pain or numbness in our body is constant. We do that only when we sit down and make notes when practicing meditation. So changing of postures conceal the dukkha nature of our physical body. As you are meditators, after sitting for an hour without changing postures, you are sure to be suffering pain somewhere, so you know how much suffering there is. When the Visuddhimagga says, pain is concealed by postures, it means that it is concealed by the postures taken to remove the pain or suffering of the previous postures. And it continues. When the postures are exposed by attention to continuous oppression, the characteristics of pain becomes apparent in its true nature. Here, the yogi see arising and disappearing. By noting patiently, first you understand impermanence, then dwelling on arising and disappearing, you find that arising and disappearing is a constant oppression. When your attention is placed on this constant oppression caused by arising and disappearing, the postures can no longer conceal the nature of suffering, so suffering becomes evident. When a person changes to a more comfortable posture, he knows that his pain will be gone temporarily, and that if he does not change the posture again, he will suffer. In this way, he knows that the pain in any posture is shifted by substituting another posture. But if he does not substitute another posture, the nature of suffering is revealed. So when you do not change postures, but continue sitting in meditation, you will see the suffering nature of things, the constant oppression caused by arising and disappearing. The dukkha that is being concealed by postures applies to the physical body only. But what about mind? What about mental states? It is not enough just to see dukkha nature in the physical body. It is important that we see dukkha nature in the mental state also. Here, postures cannot conceal dukkha because postures have nothing to do with mental state. So with regard to mental states, failure to see mind and matter to arise and disappear is that which conceals the dukkha nature. The nature of dukkha is constant operation by arising and disappearing. Only when you see arising and disappearing will you see the dukkha nature. If you do not see them, you cannot see the nature of dukkha. So failure to see arising and disappearing, maybe that which conceals the second characteristics, the characteristics of suffering. So in regard to mental state, only when you see arising and disappearing can you see the dukkha nature of these states. So during meditation, you try to be mindful of your thoughts. When a thought comes, you pay attention to it, thinking, thinking, thinking. Mindfulness take over and thinking disappear along with your attention and is replaced by another thoughts coming, and another moments of attention, mental states and your mindfulness of those mental states come one after another, arising, disappearing, arising, disappearing. When you see hundreds of objects arising and disappearing in this way, you cannot avoid understanding that they are bombarded and oppressed by arising and disappearing. Only when you see the constant oppression caused by arising and disappearing, do you really see the dukkha nature of mental states. And only when you understand dukkha in this sense, constantly oppressed by arising and disappearing, can you understand that all five aggregates of clinging are suffering. So what consider dukkha nature? Look at your paper. Number 23, page number 7. Can you follow me? The characteristics of suffering does not become apparent because when continuous oppression is not given attention, it is concealed by one's postures. 24. Because we keep changing postures, we do not realize that the body is always suffering. Because we keep changing postures, we do not realize that the body is always suffering. So there is continuous oppression. A yogi need to pay attention to it, arising and disappearing, arising and disappearing. You understand that they are continuous oppression. They are constantly continuous oppression. If you pay attention to it, and if you patiently note it, and you do not change postures, then you can break down the barriers and you can discover the true nature of suffering. And then Anatta. The characteristics of non-self anatta, does not become apparent because it is concealed by compactness. When resolution into the various Namarupa elements is not given attention. Here again there is a notion, the notion of compactness. In reality there is no compactness, but we always see things as compact, as solid things. There is man, there is a woman, there is so and so. We think that even the mind is just one solid thing. We think it is the same as the mind and knew a few moments ago, a week ago, or a month ago. And even though we have different minds, now you have hearing consciousness, then seeing consciousness, smelling consciousness, and so on. We see them as a solid things. We lump them all together as one. So these aggregates also are concealed by the notions of compactness. In reality, it is not so simplistic. When you see something, there is an object to be seen. The eye sensitivity retina is to see it, and then seeing consciousness. On our parts, we have the eye sensitivity, we have retina and the seeing consciousness. Though the act of seeing is composed of many different moments of small mental states, normally we do not think of it that way. So moments are different. We take it as just one, seeing or I see. And also hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, the same. Because we take each process to be one solid thing, we take a complex things or process as a mass, and as long as we cannot break this mass into its components, we will always think in terms of I, or a person, or an individual. There are also different functions performed by different mental states. Functions are different. We will continue using seeing as an example. Seeing consciousness has the function of seeing, which is followed by another type of consciousness. They include receiving consciousness, which has the function of receiving the image of the object that has been seen. Then investigating consciousness, which has the function of investigating the object. And a number of other mental states which arise and disappear after fulfilling their various functions in processing that one object. But we are not able to see these mental states. And process, if we cannot analyze the seeing into different mental states, performing their respective function, we see only the visible object, and I see, I hear, or a person see is what we normally understand. But for the yogis, something pain, and then you know pain, pain, pain. Pain is one, body is one. Pain and body not the same. Pain is Vedana feeling. The body is Kaya or Rupa. You walk raising, pushing forward, dropping the leg. Raising, lightness, it is Tejo. Pushing forward, that is movement, that is Vaya, air elements. They are different. Functions are different. Movements are different. But for the yogis, they can observe very clearly. And there is a difference in the way that different types of consciousness take different objects. One type of consciousness, that is seeing consciousness, take visible object, visible thing as object, and hearing consciousness take sound as object. A smelling consciousness takes smell as object, and so on. So the objects are changed, the objects are different. But people just assume that it is one mind that takes these objects, and they assume that the eye that sees is also the eye that hears. So if we do not see the difference in the way mental state takes object, we cannot shake off the notion that it is one compact eye that see, that hear, that smell, and so on. And do you understand about Anatta being concealed by compactness? In order to understand it, you need to understand the meanings of Anatta. One meaning is having no exercise of authority over it. The other meaning is the subject of this explanation is having no core. Anatta is that which has no inner core, no essence, and no self. As long as you take your body to be compact, or to be a mass, or to be just one thing with many functions, you cannot avoid the notion that there is a core, there is an inherent essence, or there is a self. To understand the another nature of things, meditators need to break things down into elements, and they are different components. As long as you cannot resolve things into their constituent parts, you will always think of them as one compact thing. But once you are able to analyze and resolve them into their various components, the notions of compactness and notion of self or atta are gone. So in order to see anatta, it is very important that you break things down. You need to cut things to pieces. You need to analyze. Now you are cutting the aggregates, step by step, part by part, stretching, 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 bending, 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 sitting, 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 seeing, 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 etc. The Abhidhamma Pitaka is all about anatta, although it does not say that there is anatta or there is anatta. It tells us that everything is anatta because everything is minutely analyzed. Chaita, mind is analyzed into consciousness and mental states. Then consciousness is analyzed into 120 types, 21 types. And mental factors are analyzed into 52 types, and so on. So everything is so minutely analyzed in order to show that there is no compactness, there is no core. The whole of Abhidhamma Pitaka is always pointing to the anatta nature of things, although we also learn many other things from it. Everything can be analyzed into components because nothing is compact. Since there is no compactness in anything, there can be no core, there can be no atta, there can be no self. So regarding anatta, we have to read the notes. Number 25. Can you follow me? The characteristics of non-self, anatta, does not become apparent because it is conceived by compactness. When resolution into the various elements is not given attention. So we continue tomorrow. We have to stop our discourse for today. By practicing vipassana meditation, by observing every phenomena occurring at the six senses, by noting rising, falling, sitting, stretching, bending, sitting, seeing, hearing, etc. continuously and meticulously, may all meditators see the true nature of anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanent suffering and non-self nature of the psychophysical phenomena. May all yogis be liberated from suffering. May all meditators realize the real peace in the very near future.